What's a job that's romanticized but in reality sucks? I strongly suspect being a spy doesn't involve half as many high-tech gadgets and spontaneous sexual intercourse as I've been led to believe. Edit, thanks for all the awards, smiley face, and wow, the way my inbox just blew up, you'd think I'd started an OnlyFans. Anything in modern-day publishing. How many television shows and movies must I watch where the plucky young upstart graduates from college and gets a job at the magazine or newspaper of their choice and is respected and can make a living? The pay sucks, you're in constant danger of being laid off, when your pub folds, usually, and it's usually a pretty corporate environment where you're tasked with multiple jobs for little hope of advancement. The names high up on the mastheads are usually those of rich people, and it's because they started off rich and could afford to stay in the industry. I've spent 9 seasons working in Antarctica both as a graduate student and now full-time academic/researcher. Everyone I tell this to immediately gets excited, and says something like, "That must be so awesome. I would love to do that." Now, first-year geoscience grad students always get incredibly excited about the possibility of doing field work like this, and to be fair, most of them understand what comes with this, and still want to do it. Heck, that's where I was 15 years ago. But, and here's the but, for this kind of work, the novelty and romantic cool factor wear off after a couple of days, and the remaining 2 to 3 months of the work is absolutely brutal. You are constantly cold, hungry, dirty, and exhausted. Small cuts and abrasions don't heal properly, your fingers crack and bleed daily, you are constantly getting frost nip, and no matter how many socks and feet warmers you wear, your toes never get warm. It's organized misery in service of science. Now if you're like me and are 100% invested in the science, for me it is ice core paleoclimatology, then it's all worth it. But, if you are a 21-year-old college student that just dreams of exploring the great unknown, it can come as an enormous reality check once on continent. I've seen so many young kids quit everything for the one chance at experiencing the raw awesomeness of Antarctica, only to realize that they effectively signed up for 3 to 6 months of a lonely and difficult stint of incredibly mind-numbing work. So many of the young workers, especially in McMurdo, will sign up to do anything, just for the chance to get to Antarctica. They come to discover after a few days that they are now stuck on continent, cleaning dorm rooms as janitors or general assistants, aka laborers/handymen, only moving from one dirty building to another in McMurdo for 12+ hour shifts. What's worse, is they watch all the scientists coming through, gearing up for ridiculous deep field deployments, while they are stuck in the stinky, diesel town of McMurdo. It can make them incredibly jaded and jealous. Sure, the view across the McMurdo Sound to the Royal Society Range and MT Discovery are beautiful, but my point is again that the novelty wears off quickly. I was stuck once in McMurdo for 18 days waiting to deploy, and I nearly went crazy. There's only so many times you can run the 5K loop around Discovery Point before it gets old. There's a reason why there are not 1, but 2 bars in McMurdo, and why every bathroom has bins full of condoms. People get lonely and depressed there. So, all this is to say, I definitely love what I do, and love remote field work and the science that comes with it. But living out of a literal tent atop the Antarctic ice sheet for up to 6 months, not getting showers, always covered in a film of sticky sunblock, and always being cold and exhausted, is really hard and not at all glamorous or romantic. I'm certainly a sentimental guy, and have taken thousands of amazing landscape and scenic photos from my deployments, but I never over-romanticize the work when talking to people, especially prospective grad students. Edit, getting lots of questions. I'll answer a couple here. Asterisk, I have some old pics from my 2008 to 2010 deployments, but only as partial albums in an old Flickr account. Knock yourselves out if you really want. Any album with Wace in the name was from Antarctica. Asterisk, how did I get down there? I was in graduate school studying glaciology, paleoclimatology, and in some sense, geophysics. I deployed as part of a big NSF grant to extract and study an ice core record. I actually went back in 2015 to South Pole to work on that core as well. Last year, I deployed on a research ship off the coast of West Antarctica as part of an ocean sediment core team, which was also quite interesting. You can get down there as a tourist as well, CAL expeditions, but it'll cost you over 10k. Asterisk, the most amazing place I visited was the area around Union Glacier to work on remote seismic and GPS stations. We flew all over to tiny exposed rocks in the middle of nowhere. It was quite surreal. Most of those pics are here. Asterisk, I watched the thing at least once a season, as is tradition. Asterisk, my little claim to fame factoid is that technically I was the first person to reach the South Pole in 2016. I went out to the marker at midnight on December 31, 2015. Which also brings up the somewhat eerie notion that while at the South Pole, literally every person alive or dead is north of you, except for maybe astronauts on the ISS. While at South Pole, I successfully completed the first every 50-mile running ultramarathon in -40°C temps. It was insanely stupid, but still kind of fun. See also here. What's my job now? I still do research, but now I mostly teach at a university and work with grad students. See here. Game tester. I worked as a game tester for EA for almost 3 years. Here's what it's like. Imagine a game type you don't like. Maybe soccer games. Maybe an RTS. Whatever. You now play that game, 8 hours a day. But you don't play it. You test it. So let's imagine an RTS. You are told to test the resource acquisition systems. All you do is click around and make sure your guys can mine gold and harvest lumber. You click around the map and mine and forest. There is no combat, they've turned that off for your testing. There is no story, because you just flick from level to test the resource system. You test using one guy. You testing using 100 guys. You make sure no other units can gather resources. You try blocking your own guys. You try killing your own guys. 8 hours a day. Every day. 4 weeks. You enter dozens of bugs. They put out a patch that fixes the bugs. You have to retest every level and every bug to make sure they're all fixed. That's game testing. From what I've understood, being a cowboy is, really awful. Well, this thread is insanely depressing. Are there any good fields to go into? LOL. Working on a film. If you're crew, it sucks. Long hours for what seem like very slow progress on the picture, lots of standing around waiting, etc. You arrive well before everyone else and leave after everyone else. If this is an indie production, you also may have to beg/chase down for your pay at the end of each week. Oh, and when the film wraps, you're now unemployed. Being a therapist. Too many people I've met get into the field thinking it's how they saw it on TV, affluent white collar, own office, warm slow pace environment, where you get to sit on a nice comfy couch and be like, let's talk about your feelings. That's only if you get to private practice, which they don't tell you is also like running your own small business, which good luck is you have no business acumen. The reality is you get out of grad school, get your first job working at a community mental health facility because they are the only ones who will hire you with a limited license and no experience, getting paid less than $40K/year if you are lucky, and then get put in a walk-in closet of an office, where they dump 100 client caseload on you the first day, followed by your first client who has 5 different diagnoses and is on 12 different psych meds who says to you, fuck you, you're my 7th different person I've had here, nobody cares about me. Yeah, people go into $100,000 of debt for that. Edit, I'm a therapist myself, I love what I do, but it takes years to get past all the shitty parts of the field to find your place in the field. Needless to say, too many don't survive the baptism by fire I mentioned above and either become burnt out, jaded, or leave the field altogether. Archaeologist, specifically field archaeology. 99% of the time you find absolutely nothing, it's often physically demanding, sometimes grueling, the pay is shit, there are no benefits, you have to constantly travel, there's very little stability, I could go on. Source, have worked in CRM, cultural resource management, archaeology for several years now. Edit, holy shit, this blew up. Just wanna stay, in spite of all the bullshit of this field, still love being an archaeologist and don't really wanna do anything else for a living, but I can't universally recommend this job to everyone in good faith. Lawyer. Number of historic, life-changing, precedent-setting cases participated in, 0. Number of angry, self-entitled, abusive clients wanting to screw each other over, 842. Number of pages of paperwork that sucked up free time and social life, 84,836. Everyone used to think it was awesome that I worked in live sports TV. 70% of the people I worked with were miserable pricks with overinflated egos, and then there were the athletes. Ballerina. Apparently lifeguard, because nobody can find them anymore. Most, not all, jobs in the environmental sector. Pay is usually quite low, you tend to work in very ugly places, landfills, contaminated sites. You are expected to get jobs done in half the time you really need with as few resources as possible. And if you are consulting for other companies, nobody really wants to be working with you to save the environment, they generally are just trying to barely meet some regulations. Edit. There are definitely exceptions, as some commenters have pointed out. Some people find a niche that works out very well for them. Just sharing my personal experience and that of other environmental professionals I have known. Edit number 2. I don't mean to discourage anyone who really wants to pursue an environmental career, but I also really wish that I would have learned some of the negatives, in my comment and the many replies, before I began mine. As a result, I only lasted a few years as an environmental consultant and basically started over in a completely new field. Computer game development, especially testing. That is the ass end of an industry that is mostly ass. What's a mistake that you made once that you'll never make again? Always check for toilet paper before using the restroom. I had root canal. I now brush and floss like it's my last day. Turn the oven on without first checking if there's anything inside. Edit. Goodness. I didn't expect such a response. So glad my mistake resonates with many of you. Mine was a plastic cutting board someone had stored in my oven. They were trying to help me clean, not sure why they thought it was a good storage place. I didn't know, as I kept my oven empty, until the flowless smell came from there and the whole thing had melted into the whole thing. Took me a while to get the smell and hard plastic off. Taking a job offer where the manager was a little too eager to hire. It was not because I was that awesome. Eating couscous before the water had fully soaked in. Turns out it continues to expand in the stomach. Thinking that the employee survey is really anonymous. Took an antibiotic that needed a meal prior on taking said antibiotic. But it was the middle of the night and decided to wing it. That horrible feeling afterwards was etched into my brain and decided to never do it again. After donating blood, they say not to do strenuous exercise for a couple hours. Well, I thought I'd stop by the grocery store on the way home from the blood bank. A nice old lady asked me to help her with a big bag of dog food. I thought there's no way that would be considered strenuous. Then I woke up on the floor with a small crowd standing around me and someone calling for an ambulance. I was fine, but it was a bit embarrassing. CO signing on a loan for a family member. Trying to catch a falling knife. Neglect my teeth. Sharing something very personal with a partner who didn't deserve to know. You should not use a Clorox wipe as a wet wipe for your bum. Remain in a relationship after being cheated on. Boy, was that foolish of me. Seeking esteem and approval from my parents and returning to live with them. What did you not know about sex until you lost your virginity? The most simple one of all. You don't just shove it in. It's kinda hard to put it in without it slipping out, gotta guide it much more than you think. Just because you're having sex doesn't mean you'll become good at it without a remarkable amount of trial and error. Penises can move on their own. Well, be moved by their owner without hands. That shocked me that they can make 'em bounce. That two bellies rubbed together at just the right angle can make a loud fart noise. Funny though when it does happen for the first time. The large amount of sounds that can be produced by the human body. Instead of just after virginity, after years of having sex and looking back at my first time where my partner was much more experienced than me, I've realized that pretty much all sex with a new person, virginity or not, feels new. I was really hung up on being good at it when I should have treated it as a learning experience for the next time. That foreplay is super important. You don't see it too much in a lot of porn, so until you get into the bedroom you don't really consider the prep. Oftentimes you just see people going at it, which is great and all, but everything is much better when both parties are warmed up. How you masturbate can be a huge influence on your sex life. How sleepy you got after you bust a nut. Shit can be like an instant Valium. Porn is a terrible guide for virgins. You are unlikely to be coordinated enough or understand your partner's body well enough to do any of that weird shit. Also, 90% of the positions you see in porn are uncomfortable as all hell. Start slow, communicate, explore each other and learn, that is the key to having a good first time. Source: someone who had no idea what he was doing and made an absolute jackass of himself on his first attempt. Edit: for everyone making counterpoints or arguing the point, this comment is again specifically talking about when you have not yet had sex, and this is a trend I've observed, not a rule. I'm also not saying you can't learn things by watching, just that before you've actually gone and had sex, most of what you see will likely not be that applicable. Happy humping. It's warm. Very warm. It's like jacuzzi warm in there. Pleasant surprise. The vaginal canal is often at an angle and not simply directed straight down. You don't just roll over in bed after. You waddle to the toilet. It's not sexy. That I was allergic to latex.